In 1968, a Tory MP claimed to a journalist, "I'm going to make a speech at the weekend, and it's going to go up fizz like a rocket. But whereas all rockets fall to the earth, this one is going to stay up." His speech did make an impact, but it cost him his career. The day after, Ted Heath sacked him from the shadow cabinet.
I was sitting with my mum, and we heard it on the news, and we knew when we heard it that it was going to make life unpleasant.
We have got enough immigrants into this country, and we don't want no more.
In this country, in 15 or 20 years' time, the black man will have the whip hand over the white man.
Enoch Powell's controversial speech, made to a Conservative Association meeting in Birmingham 1968, railed against the Race Relations Bill.
It almost passes belief that at this moment, 20 to 30 additional immigrant children are arriving from overseas in Wolverhampton alone every week.
Powell prophesied that mass migration would lead to segregation and communal violence, but it was his incendiary language that dominated the headlines. I've seen clips of this speech before and I've read excerpts from it, but I've never actually sat down and watched it and taken it in. And if anything, it's more powerful, i.e. more chilling.
We must be mad, literally mad as a nation, to be permitting the annual inflow of some 50,000 dependents who are, for the most part, the material of the future growth of the immigrant-descended population. It is like watching a nation busily engaged in heaping up its own funeral pyre.
The day after the speech, someone came by in a car and shouted, "Nigger, go home." Of course, I'd experienced racism before, but never in such an overt way, never in such a blatant way, and with such a sense of permission. And that was the great evil of the speech. It gave people permission to show that they didn't want black people in their towns, in their cities, in their lives, in this country at all.
This is why to enact legislation of the kind before Parliament at this moment is to risk throwing a match onto gunpowder.
I always thought Enoch Powell in his delivery would be, upper class, clipped English, but there's a Midlands twang in there. He's coming across in a way as something of a man of the people. He's got this crumpled bit of paper in his hand. It's almost as if he's saying, "I am the last sane voice here."
I can already hear the chorus of execration. How dare I say such a horrible thing? How dare I stir up trouble and inflame feelings by repeating such a conversation? My answer is that I do not have the right not to do so.
Britain, keep it white as it should be.
The speech split the nation. Thousands took to the streets in support of Enoch Powell, even petitioning for him to be reinstated to the shadow cabinet.
Now that these things have been discussed publicly in this inflammatory way, people who do hold these extreme views think it's respectable to come out and say them, and I'm afraid it's also become respectable for some people to govern their behaviour by these thoughts.
Thousands more, shocked and disgusted by the speech's blatant racism, protested. The core of Powell's message was bigoted and inflammatory, but it was the words and imagery he chose that were truly incendiary. In his speech, he refers to a letter from a pensioner in his constituency, Wolverhampton. Windows are broken. She finds excreta pushed through her letterbox. When she goes to the shops, she is followed by children, charming, wide-grinning pickaninnies. They cannot speak English, but one word they know: racialist, they chant.
For me, it was personally deeply offensive because, of course, I identified with, what did he describe them? Charming, wide-eyed, grinning Pickaninnies. Enoch Powell was not a man who ever used words loosely. And the speech is a masterpiece in its way.
The black man will have the whip hand over the white man.
I'm shocked at how offensive it actually is.
How dare I say such a horrible thing?
The language, the vocabulary, the word Negro that we would never hear or use anymore. And then at the end of the speech, there's that line. As I look ahead, I am filled with foreboding. Like the Roman, I seem to see the river Tiber foaming with much blood. These words are so evocative, the speech itself has been renamed Rivers of Blood. What I find really uncomfortable and embarrassing is that he rounds on a metaphor. He uses poetry to make his main point, or he misuses poetry. This metaphor, Rivers of Blood, you know, and as a poet, that it offends me.
The rivers of blood, it's the funeral pyre, it's the black man with the whip hand. That's why the speech endures as utterly repellent, because it was designed to be.
There are occasions, though, when an unplanned, impromptu speech can be just as effective. In 2011, on this street, a woman felt so appalled by what she saw going on around her that she felt compelled to speak out. Unlike Enoch Powell's carefully crafted speech, with its meticulously chosen words, this was 2 minutes of unbridled spontaneity, a passionate, unstoppable outpouring straight from the spleen.
It was like something out of a Mad Max movie. Absolute mayhem, things on fire, cars, bikes, all sorts, bins upside down. That night, for some reason, people lost all their senses. I didn't understand what they were doing, and they sure as hell didn't know what they were doing.
Did you know you were going to start shouting? Were these things that had been brewing up for a long time and then suddenly found an occasion to come out?
I could feel the rage building in me, and there was no one actually trying to calm things down. I just knew, I suppose I just had to say something. As I'm getting closer, I'm getting more annoyed. So I got a bit verbal as I hit the corner there, and I'm like, for God's sake, why are you burning cars? These are your neighbours' cars. It doesn't make sense.
You understand? Poor Auntie Patty's up there. She's working hard to make her business work, and then you lot want to go and burn it up for what? Just to say that you're warring and you're bad man. This is about a fucking man who got shot in Tottenham. This ain't about having fun on the road and busting up the place. Get it real, black people. Get real.
What I like about what you were saying was that just the passion, the raw passion and the energy. It was the way that you were saying it, the force of it.
I had no control over my mouth at that point. It just all came out.
Do it for a cause. If we're fighting for a cause, let's fight for a fucking cause. You lot piss me the fuck off. I'm ashamed to be a happy person. Because we're not all gathering together and fighting for a cause. We're running down Foot Locker and teeth in shoe. Dirty teeth or not. Shut.
I've been to jail. I know what the outcomes are. I know what kind of obstacles will be facing you when you come out of jail. I wanted them to know that.
Pauline had no idea that a spur-of-the-moment speech was being captured on camera and shared on YouTube. Just 12 hours later, over 2 million people around the world had heard what she had to say. Do you think your speech did make a difference?
I think to some degree it did. People said to me that it was kind of at that point where people started coming out with the brooms and, you know, everyone started standing up for their communities a bit more.
You were the voice of decency in amongst a lot of chaos for a moment.
Well, the voice of decency with a few indecent words.